Carrefour is a French retailer with 1,600 hypermarkets in more than 30 countries. Market cap here of 15.1 billion euros. Trades on a PE of 18.4. Dividend yield of 3.6%.
Okay. So we're doing like a kind of a multi-country European tour here. And I thought, well, we can't talk about BNP Paribas again. So what else have I got in the library? And I stumbled upon Carrefour, which is not a particularly enormous supermarket group, but you know, one of the global
it's a
players, I
well-known,
suppose.
respected brand.
It used to be.
What, a well-known, respected brand?
No, it used to be one of the world's biggest. Yeah, no,
it probably is still by turnover and so on.
Let's have a look at the share price graph.
It's only got a market cap of 16 billion euros.
I was going to say the market cap is very small. Yeah.
So there's the share chart.
Not looking too good but again, you know, this could be a reflection of the consumer cycle. However, will it ever get back to the highs that it hit mid-2015 would be the operative question.
Yeah, and I think there's also an issue. I did see their name coming up in a couple of articles about being Amazoned, which in retailer parlance now relates to concerns for traditional retailers when it comes to Amazon getting in and obviously just online groceries, of which I'm assuming there are a couple of players in the French market.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, they've lost a lot of market share in Europe particularly, and if you look at the margins in France, I mean, they're down something like 60 basis points. It's huge. So they're taking a real caning in parts of Europe, and part of it I think relates to what you're talking about, Paul, on the online front. They're also taking a lot of strain, as many of the other European retailers are, from the German discounters Aldi and Lidl, which are significantly cheaper than the likes of a Carrefour.
And why is that? Just because they have lower margins, more?
They don't. They have big margins. They're 7-8% margins.
So why are they so much more competitive?
Well, if you take Aldi, for example, it's all own brand stuff, okay? And when the manager's not doing something, if the shop's particularly busy, he has to lend a hand. He has to stack shelves, and he has to go and go on the tills. They get well paid, but they really have to work for it.
So are we saying here that Carrefour has been left behind in terms of not keeping up with their competitors? One, from a digital perspective, so the, what did you say, being Amazoned?
Amazoned, or Amazonification.
And then secondly, just the operating model itself is behind that of its competitors.
Well, I think that's right. And, you know, it's struggling. I think a lot of these traditional supermarket chains are struggling because of those things we mentioned, and their forays into foreign markets have not been particularly successful either.
Well, I'm glad you raised that, because the interesting thing about Carrefour is that if you take their total number of stores, and this includes big ones as well as little ones, they've got about 5,500 in France, but they also have like 1,500 in Italy. And then an absolute string of countries. They've got sort of 550 in Argentina, another similar number in Brazil. They've got stores in China, Taiwan, and Indonesia. Belgium, they're quite big.
You can't argue with their geographic
big
footprint.
So they're all over the show. And I don't know.
Is it a good or a bad thing?
I think that's marginally a good thing, because that could mean that they could benefit from emerging market growth relative to the other.
And also relatively defensive, because if one territory is not doing well, it could be supplemented by another geography that is doing well.
I mean, you've mentioned Brazil and Argentina, and they're taking real strain in Argentina as that economy crumbles. And Brazil's not looking
And Brazil's not firing on any cylinders at all.
Brazil is finally beginning to pick itself up a bit. It's firing on one cylinder again.
On one cylinder.
It's not freewheeling anymore.
Are we going hot or not on Carrefour?
No, definitely not.
Not hot. And Paul?
No, I don't think there's any major reason to feel positive about this one, and I think the market knows that. That's why it's kind of marking them down to more realistic price to earnings ratio. It's the reverse of what happens when you have rising sentiment and enthusiasm. It's the sort of declining PE, which you don't want to be trapped in.